How you doing, guys? I'm the Bearded Devil. Welcome to my channel. Okay, so we have another video on about Ask Yourself. I know it's been a while, but I plan to plan to have a live stream in the future discussing what's happened to me and what I've been doing and all that kind of jazz. But we're gonna get into this video, and the reason why is because I've watched this or listened to this debate before, and well, there are a few key things that I find interesting. Particularly Isaac's kind of newfound. It's not a new argument. It's the same fucking argument. He's just added a new little twist. He calls it the universe box. In it, he's using it to kind of reduce a non-vegan's argument to absurdities, which in some cases can be a relevant form of kind of counter-argument, or at the very least exposing some contradiction in the thinking. But from the rip, I want you to take notice of what's going to be going on. So we're going to go over, we're going to listen to it a little bit, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary and what my problems are with it.
Okay, so I'll just point out the reductio for that position. So since you're not placing any value on sentience, you're going to end up justifying an infinite holocaust of infinite sentience. So if you picture something like, for example, the universe box, we transport your family, all your loved ones, everyone else into it. Now they can't reciprocate value anymore, but they're still sentient beings with a desire to live. By your ethical system, it would be fine to holocaust all of them.
Now, I want you to pay attention to something. First, of what he's doing. All right, he is, of course, reducing Red Bat's kind of his trait that was named, which is, I believe, not being able to reciprocate ethics with other humans. Basically, that's kind of his trait. You know, human reciprocating. You know, ethics to the point where it's kind of a human is the gold standard. Now, Isaac has already kind of said, well, okay, yes, you're consistent in this. I'm not sure if it's at this point or a little bit further on, but he does inform Red Bat Media that he is consistent. But that doesn't end it, does it? No, of course not. It never does. But what he did right there was saying, oh, well, let's just put your whole family in a box. And they just happen to not have the trait that you're saying. Yeah, is it okay if we press the button? He's using Red Bat's emotional connection with his family. He could have used anything, really. Just other humans or whatever, but no. He used an emotional manipulative tactic by saying, oh, well, we'll put your family in the box. Because most of the time people give a shit about their family. Okay. But notice what he's also saying. He's saying that sentience, all else, it's whatever. As long as they're sentient, then therefore that's the most important thing. And he goes on to talk about it, but we'll address that. But this first little application of the universe box is purely an emotionally manipulative tactic. That's really it. And you'll see the reaction that Red Bat gives.
In fact, your system actually would justify, in theory, an infinite holocaust of infinite sentience, so long as you remove the trait ability to reciprocate, even if the beings are not causing any harm. So I think most people would reject that as just completely retarded.
Okay, real quick, and you notice that Red Bat kind of gives the he hesitates. because of the mentioning of his family. And then he goes on, Isaac goes on about, oh, well, they could justify infinite sentience, and you can justify a holocaust of infinite sentience, blah, 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 blah. Wait, back it up real quick. I want to hear something again.
But they're still sentient beings with a desire to live. By your ethical system, it would be fine to holocaust all of them. In fact, your system actually would justify, in theory, an infinite holocaust of infinite sentience, so long as you remove the trait ability to reciprocate, even if the beings are not causing any harm. So I think most people would reject that as just
that right there. Now, that, friends, is what we call the how's it put? Oh yeah, of course, the what is it? Appeal to popularity. Saying, oh well, most people wouldn't agree with that. Most people. It's also known as the bandwagon fallacy. And this is what he does is commonly, whenever somebody does have a consistency and disprove, basically, in other words, that his argument is more or less defeated, that his name the trait, he pulls out the whole, well, nobody's going to really agree with that. That doesn't necessarily mean what they said was wrong, does it? It doesn't make your argument any less invalid now, right? I mean, just because it's not popular doesn't mean essentially anything, unless you're trying to say that morality is based, of course, on popularity, but then again, well, popular opinion says that consuming animal products is A-okay, and you don't like that, so you can't necessarily go, oh, well, we're going to use this fallacy for this, and it's okay, but if you use the fallacy, then it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. Come on, man. Whatever.
Completely retarded.
For the, so, let me get this. There's a box with, and there, all the humans in the world except for me. Is that the scenario? Not sure I understood that.
Yeah, basically just that, but more specifically, all your loved ones. By the way, Isaac, just real quick, he basically said something equivocal to, yeah, he'd allow.
Yeah. Oh, where is the other box? The other box. He talks about it even further. Where is it? Yes, of course. A little bit further, he talks about the box even more. I believe it's right here.
Cognitive level, then that's not going to justify the infinite holocaust of infinite sentience. That's just going to justify an infinite holocaust of low sentience people.
Right,
Okay.
the universe
Hold on.
box?
Where is that at? I gotta find it. Hold on. I want to say maybe right
No, the
there.
hypothetical is specifically that they can't reciprocate. If we need to get specific, you can put them all in their own universe box with other simulations in it instead of
Blah,
other
blah,
people,
blah.
so they can't reciprocate with each other either. Now, if you're ultimately going to say it's not about their ability to reciprocate, because that's removed by the hypothetical, it's about their cognitive level, then that's not going to justify the infinite holocaust of infinite sentience. That's just going to justify an infinite holocaust of low sentience people.
Okay. Now, did you catch that real quick? According to Isaac, anyone who is below, who has a cognitive level below normal, is less sentient. Did you catch that? Now, we'll get into the value of what any of this means, but all he's doing is, you know, the meme they got going on out there, the one where an individual must press a button, right? There's always two choices, and both of them are kind of shit, right? He's removed the other button, more or less. Well, no, buttons still exist. One way is to get out of the argument. One's to be consistent and justify murdering or an eternal holocaust of some sort of sentient beings. Yeah. The other one is go vegan. Seriously, like, that's literally how it is. Or some shit. Press a button. Murder an infinite number of individuals for an infinite amount of time. Press the other button. You lose a debate, and you're fucking vegan. It's... We've already seen that he's manipulated the individual's red bat's emotional level by introducing his family into the mix. Then he's gone into a little bit further. You know, now it's, oh, okay, you know, they go into, see, if I remember correctly, Red Bat didn't say shit about the individual's cognitive level. Isaac did. But yet, he's saying that your cognitive level determines your level of sentience, which wouldn't necessarily, how would that work?
So you have to be clear about what your axiom is there. Is it the ability to reciprocate, or is it having a certain level of intelligence?
It's specifically being able to reciprocate ethical consideration towards other humans.
Yep, so that's removed. So your system would justify an infinite holocaust of infinite sentience. So do you bite the bullet on that conclusion, or do you contradict yourself?
So justifying an infinite holocaust of people who are unable to reciprocate any towards more of any towards.
Oh, not just people. We're talking about, at this point, vastly more valuable beings than humans. Because
Stop. Vastly more valuable beings than humans. I wonder what Isaac could possibly mean by that. Could it be the aliens again? I bet it is. I know it is.
the problem with what you're doing is you're not putting any value on sentience. If you're not putting value on sentience, then there's always going to be a hypothetical where we abstract out the thing that you're putting value on, and we just have sentient beings. So we can create a hypothetical where we actually scale their sentience up infinitely to a point that you're talking about destroying an infinite amount of infinitely sentient beings. And if you just try to picture an infinitely sentient being, I mean, just picture everything you value about your own consciousness, your capacity for love, your emotional states, your ability to experience awe at the universe, all of these things, they're just
Feelings.
amplified 1,000-fold. This being's resting state is the kind of state that a human experiences once in its life, like some transcendental bliss or something like this.
Doesn't exist.
So,
okay. For one, he's created this hypothetical, and within this context, he's saying these infinitely sentient individuals. And yet they're saying, okay. The fuck does that mean? I understand he gave an example of what he means by this. Saying that, how you feel the best part of everything. It's feelings. It's fucking feelings. An emotional state. Bliss is an emotional state. These are emotional states. Sensory pleasure. Okay. take those same individuals. Now, what if these transcendental, sentient beings, right? These individuals who are so sentient that every moment for them is pretty much the best ever. That's not what you're saying. That's not infinitely sentient. That's infinitely blissful, infinitely joy, infinite. That would also mean that, by all rights, intents, and purposes, infinite pain. They would feel infinite pain. Infinite everything. If you stub your toe, for them, their stubbing their toe would be literally the entire world exploding. There's a flip side to your analogy, and that is, of course, everything bad would also be on an infinite level. You're about to sort of make that kind of an argument, but in the end, you're not saying that these individuals who are sentient beyond all imagination, you're saying they're infinitely happy, infinite happiness. That's what you're saying. That's it. That's you're basically saying that you're not talking about sentience in the realm of the fact that, well, one, how do you measure sentience in the first place? You can't. There's no physical way to do that. Okay? There's no actual way to measure sentience, at least in the form in which you're referring to. You can't. How much does a cup of bliss weigh? How can you sit there and state that state of being would be comparable? But here's the thing. With infinite bliss would, of course, come infinite sorrow. You're stating that these individuals can experience an infinite level of sorrow. That what to you is a normal paper cut and makes you might hurt a little bit, may even hurt your feelings a smidge. An insult would literally be death for a human. Insult to them, the feeling of being insulted would kill a human being. That just the emotion, and that's the deal. You're using an emotional argument. You're equating sentience with emotion. And that's the whole thing. Saying that something's infinitely this, and then you're literally putting the thought in the kid's head. Putting all this in, just telling him, oh, imagine all this infinite joy, and you're going to be responsible for killing all of it. Repeatedly. Forever. You would technically also be ending all of their sorrow. All of their pain. They're dead. They would no longer be burdened by that infinite level of pain. If you knew that the individuals in the box would forever be in pain just for something as simple as a paper cut. You see, this is where you're going. You're using this manipulative tactics, but wait, whatever, man.
If you're not saying that sentience is the basis for value, your system is going to justify an infinite holocaust, not just of humans, but of infinitely sentient beings. Now, if you're going to try to get around that and say it's actually about their level of intelligence, then it's just going to justify an infinite holocaust of lower sentience beings. So what exactly is the axiom? Is it about their intelligence level, or is it about their ability to reciprocate?
It's specifically about their ability to reciprocate towards other humans. So
So then that would justify an infinite holocaust of infinite sentience. Do you bite the bullet on that conclusion?
destroying infinite sentience that are unable to reciprocate. Human ethical consideration? Sure.
Yeah, but they're unable to reciprocate because they're in the universe box. They're incapable of reciprocating with you.
Wait, so they're incapable even if they were removed from the universe box?
That's saying if they're not in the hypothetical. That's just you changing the situation. If you're going to say it's about what they would be capable of doing, you're talking about their intelligence level.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's saying that they would not be able to reciprocate the human level moral consideration, where the fuck it was. That had nothing to do with their intelligence. Maybe it's a concept they're completely, absolutely unaware of. Maybe they have no concept of it at all. That has nothing to do with their intelligence. So I'm not sure where he goes with this. Why he brings up retards, because he has to? That's the thing with arguing with Ask Yourself? Is he has to bring up retards for some strange reason, even though this kid has said nothing about their level of intelligence. They could be incredibly intelligent and yet unable, for whatever reason, to not be able to reciprocate human level moral consideration. But even still, I personally wouldn't want to. I'm a terror right now. One of the mistakes the kid made was even naming a trait to begin with. Specifically this trait. Because for Isaac, sentience is the most important thing ever, right? He's said this. He's repeatedly said this. Sentience is the most important thing. Because he says, no matter how many times you boil down the argument, it's always going to come to sentience. It doesn't, but for him, for this particular situation, this scenario, it has.
I would say that because I wouldn't think that they'd necessarily give us ethical consideration. We shouldn't have any ethical consideration towards them, but I still would.
We're talking about an infinite amount of infinitely.
Now the kid has already said, "I'm fine with this. This is fine." What does Isaac keep doing? He's trying to push the kid to give him the answer he wants. Trust me on this one. He does. The kid ends up abandoning it. He rolls over. It's pathetic. No offense, Red Bat, but to me that was probably the worst thing you could have done. You should have just stood your ground and said, well, still.
Sentient beings who mean you no harm whatsoever, but they're just incapable of interacting with you in any way. So they don't have any ability to reciprocate your values or not reciprocate them. They're just in the box.
Now, case in point, he's just said it. They're all in the box, right? They have no way to get a hold of you. Not even just, they're just in the box. They can't communicate with you, you can't communicate with them. It's just push the button or don't push the button. With all you knowing is they will never reciprocate the same moral considerations. That would also mean that they would kill you without any moral compunction. Now, Isaac has thrown in a caveat. They mean you no harm. How would you know if you never knew? The only thing you're supposed to know is they're unable to reciprocate moral consideration to you. And the same level as you would to another human. So the problem becomes Isaac keeps putting these extra bits. He's technically moving the goalpost. Saying, oh, okay, moral consideration, there's no ability to reciprocate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now it's, oh, well, they mean you no harm. Will you press the button? he's setting up even more and more and more until the kid caves.
So, just to be clear, you would bite the bullet on saying it is fine to destroy an infinite amount of infinitely sentient beings.
I would say that from a moral standpoint, it's neutral, but again, I'd have other reasons to worry about somebody who would destroy it.
Okay, wait. No, I really hate when people give Weasley answers like, oh, the horrible thing is morally neutral, but I have some reason.
Again, quantifying it. The horrible thing is morally neutral. Or the morally neutral thing is morally neutral. The horrible thing by whose standards? My own. That's the whole thing. He's setting it up, and he attacks the kid from an emotional standpoint, turn around and uses, and again, moves the goalpost. The kid's like, hey, look, this is my standpoint. This is a trait that I believe would justify or the lack thereof, that would justify killing, say, humans that couldn't reciprocate human level moral consideration or some shit like that. Granted, it does in essence mean that yes, killing retarded individuals and babies and all that kind of stuff. But I think he quantifies it with the potential or the ability, something to where, if the individuals who were mentally challenged, or for infants or whatever, that if whatever scenario it could be done to where the child's an adult, they have the potential, obviously. And the same thing for the individuals who are, of course, retarded. Had they not been retarded, then things would be hunky-dory. But I can't remember if that was what he did. Oh yeah, it's the ability to reciprocate. Yeah. The ability is still there. It's the actuation. Human infants have the ability, but there's a couple of things that he's missing, but we'll get to it.
No, it's what does your ethical system support? I don't care about whatever you say after it's morally neutral. So if you're going to say that it's morally neutral to Holocaust infinite sentience, at that point you've lost virtually everyone. Now, if you're just aiming for...
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if anybody else agrees with him, in all honesty. As long as it's consistent and you can't necessarily find any holes in it, then it defeats your argument. Whether or not society as a whole agrees to it, it's a hypothetical, isn't it? We are dealing in hypotheticals, mind you.
For just being autistic, sitting on the periphery of society with a logically consistent position that no one accepts, you can do that. You can...
See, he quantifies it. He just sits there and he just repeatedly dogs anyone who's consistent. And this is what he's done, and he does it repeatedly. Mind you, we're talking about within hypothetical scenarios. He's not taking it to literal extremes. The red bat. He's not actually saying in reality this. No, he's addressing the hypothetical, which is fine. But you see, Isaac is moving that into more of reality. And then, of course, claiming, oh, well, nobody would agree with you, therefore, you're what? Does it make him any less wrong? Oh, sorry. Does it make him any less right? My bad.
Hannibal has a logically consistent position. You could...
Hannibal is a fictional character. The whole I eat people for good reasons. Yeah. Sorry. That was his consistency. He ate people for good reasons. Are you gonna say that Hannibal, that we should all... He uses Hannibal a lot. It's just whatever, but in reality... Does Hannibal Lecter have a morally consistent point of view simply because he does eat human beings? Or is he specific on which human beings he does consume? He may avoid retards completely. and babies. In fact, I believe he's got standards. But still, fictional character. Doesn't matter. I get it. I know it's within the hypothetical. It's whatever. But I just think it's funny that that's his go-to. But see, I'm gonna address that. I'll address that. Just keep. We'll keep talking.
Hold a logically consistent position of I just don't value anything. There's tons of logically consistent positions that no one will accept. So if you're gonna
Yes, sure. There are potentially logically consistent positions that people will accept. Or sorry. Yeah, that people won't accept. He likes to bring up Hannibal, and Hannibal the cannibal, and that's a consistent morality. But no one would agree with it, right? So let's play a game, shall we? Well, no, I'm not even going to play it. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. Do you know how many times I've had vegans sit there and say that it's perfectly okay to kill, to murder, and then consume the body of another human being? Too many to count in a very disturbing manner. Yes. Oh, I'm going to tell you right now. His Hannibal the cannibal routine, and claiming that no one's gonna like it. It's very unpopular, and because it's unpopular, what? I'll go into it. Yes, I've actually had vegans tell me that cannibalism's cool. I'll explain why in a minute.
You're going to say, my basis for moral consideration is value reciprocation. And you bite the bullet on the situations where beings can't reciprocate value, saying, it's either good or morally neutral or anything other than morally wrong to kill those beings. You can be consistent if you want to do that, but everyone is going to reject your system as just completely retarded, and you won't be able to persuade anyone.
Fallacy. Just because no one, and that's the whole thing. This is those manipulative tactics, claiming no one's going to agree with it. Everyone's gonna hate it. Everyone's gonna hate it. Change your mind. Don't say what you want to say. I want my argument to be consistent. I want my argument to never be able to be defeated. That's all I hear.
So just to be totally clear, you do bite the bullet. You say it is morally neutral to holocaust infinite sentience.
Removed from any other circumstance, yes.
Yeah, but you're trying to hedge your answer. You're trying to make it sound not as retarded as it is.
All else being equal. How many times have you heard Isaac say that? All else being equal. And in this case, the one trait that they couldn't do. And he's saying, and the kid's saying, yes, all else being equal, I find it perfectly fine. And Isaac is that's retarded. It's retarded.
So we're just getting at what your moral system says, okay? So by your moral system, it's just a yes or a no question. It is fine to holocaust infinite sentience, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so most people will...
Now, that's it. That should be done with the argument. No. He goes, most people would reject that.
Reject your system as completely insane at that point. And just to point out why, most people would understand that the Jewish Holocaust was extremely immoral. 11 million people or whatever that was. Most people would recognize that, the Holodomor or any of these other Holocausts or genocides that have taken place are immoral. So what your system justifies is something that is infinitely worse than all of those systems put together. So
what is it? Vlog like second law or some shit? I mean, he's used the Holocaust thing, and then he hammers it home, and it's now the Holocaust. Oh, la 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 la. And he's like, oh look, all of these Holocausts that have occurred that had nothing to do with what this kid is talking about. He's saying, oh well, it's so much more horrible than that. And then everyone would hate you because of your argument.
So yeah, I rest my case.
That's watch. You felt that pause, right?
I can see what you're saying.
No, kid, you really don't.
Alright, in my video I give another argument. So what if
That's enough of that one in particular. Whereas, I want to go into something real quick. Let me find the actual timestamp for this. Give me a second. You're living this individual just as much as I am. Oh. Okay, that's a little different than what I was looking for. Yes. Bring up the aliens. The kid changed his tactic. Where is that stupid shit? Blah blah blah. There we go.
I mean, let me be clear. If you're saying it's about some kind of conscious ability to reciprocate or something like this, or some real world ability to reciprocate, those are things that won't lead to veganism, but those have their own absurdities. If you're just going to talk about, something along the lines of like whether that being is going to cause problems for me or other beings, that's totally reasonable. Like most vegans would say, if a bear attacks you, fuck that bear right up. But there's a difference there. So are you saying that it's about their whether or not they are posing some kind of threat to you? Is that the core thing you're getting at, or is it actually about a conscious level of comprehension of morality?
it's more about like a similarity to human ethics. So if a alien species did have a system of ethics, but it was very rudimentary, and like they constantly like killed and ate each other or something, then I would say it would be I wouldn't give them the same level of ethical consideration that I would give a human. But in this analogy, I have to give some ethical consideration to just about everything that's conscious. It's just they wouldn't be the same level of consideration.
Okay, I'm still not clear on what you're saying, because we would give moral consideration to anything that's conscious, but not on the same level. I mean,
Here's a other point in which in the argument where he goes into the moral hierarchy, or a moral hierarchy, his moral hierarchy. This basic synopsis of it is, well, no, let him say that. Hold on.
if you think that vegans hold the position that moral consideration for every being should be equal, that's not the position that any rational vegan holds. So just to be clear, I mean, if we care about well-being,
Substitute moral consideration with right to life. He literally just said that there's no equal right to life amongst even sentient beings.
it seems only logical to value beings in accordance with their capacity to manifest well-being. So,
By the way, what the fuck does that mean? To give them moral consideration based on their ability to show how happy they can be or how much pain they can go through. Oh wait, well-being just means comfort, being comfortable and happy. That's it. I don't know why he utilizes well-being, saying that their ability to show how happy they are. And then of course comparing it to people.
I mean, an ant, for example, is going to live for orders of magnitude less long than a human and experience conscious states orders of magnitude less meaningful and beautiful. And it's easy to tell that a human life is better than an ant's life, because I can just ask you, if you had a choice to live as either an ant or a human, which would you pick?
In all actuality, probably the ant. It comes with a hell of a lot less problems. You really want to know? So my life would be short. It would be relative. My experience might be comparatively maybe less than a human being, but it would be relatively the same. But that's not what I want you to. That's irrelevant. Sort of. Notice that he's saying that the orders of magnitude that ants experience in orders of magnitude less than a human being. So the moral consideration towards them should be orders of magnitude less.
So we would also extend value to all beings, and we would do that with, we'd give them different levels of value in accordance with their capacity for well-being. So that right there is totally fine. But
You notice that, right? We would give them moral consideration based on their capacity to show how happy they can be. So if an ant is orders of magnitude less than a human, what's the downside of that? Stating that you would give moral consideration, but it would have levels. What does level 1 get you? What does level 100 get you? Who gets put in between? And how do you know that they are that they don't have the capacity to show how happy they are or whatnot to? I'm just curious because you're basing it off of, you're claiming that that's what basically what sentience boils down to, is the ability to experience well-being, and you're basing that they can't experience well-being. Okay, again, what's the consequence then? They never really go into it. They just say, hey, we give moral consideration, but it's got levels. Okay, what does the lowest level get you? What is the consequence of being that low level individual, that low level, the individual organism that has the lowest level of moral consideration? What does that give? And is that any different than the individual at the highest level?
I'm still a bit weirded out. When you say it's about their similarity to human ethics, are you saying it's about an individual being having a moral system that they can actually conceptualize in their brain that's sufficiently similar to ours?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not about whether they actually are reciprocating in practice. So it's more about their actual cognitive ability.
Yeah, the potential to develop an ethical set of values similar to that of a human. I think
so
this would require.
That would get you out of the insane kind of place you were in a minute ago with the universe box, because then you can say, well, if it's about the actual consciousness level, basically, or the moral system forming ability of those individual beings. It's not about their actual capacity for reciprocation. So then you're not trapped by a situation that just abstracts out the quality ability.
It's the same thing. If they're unable to create the moral system, I suppose, then reciprocation of those moral systems, the moral values or moral considerations that are similar in nature to humans, it's not different, really. It's not a matter of... He keeps saying it's cognitive ability. The kid isn't saying that. Why does he... Well, I know why he's saying it, but whatever.
Ability to reciprocate. But you end up in similarly bad, maybe not as bad, but still pretty bad situations with that. So, for example, there's humans who can't do this. So you would have...
No, he's going to pull out that one. He's repeating himself. It's just... Kid, you gave him a softball of an argument. He's just repeating himself. He hasn't changed anything. He's literally saying the same things. But I want you to note something. He's equated sentience with importance. Moral value. Moral importance, if you will. He's saying that individuals, and just, by the way, happens to be humans apparently at the top. But, well, as far as what's on this planet. So, according to him, and many, many other vegans, humans have the highest moral value because our ability to be comfortable and happy is... Our ability to experience it is somehow higher than another sentient being. But here's the question: how do you know that it is? You can't actually measure sentience. You can measure intelligence. You can measure the size of an animal's brain. You can even measure synaptics, the rate of synaptics, the rate of fire for the synapses. But you can't actually measure sentience. You also can't measure emotions. Not in that same capacity. You can measure the effects, you can measure the hormonal responses, but in essence, you can't actually measure bliss or sadness. You can say it's a lot or little, but never actually in any way, shape, fashion, or form that would be considered accurate. It's a good way, because what is bliss for one person could be agony for another. And vice versa and whatnot. But let's go off of what he said about being infinitely sentient, which of course would mean that you are, in essence, compared to humans, just say if those infinite beings, those beings of infinite sentience existed, and they're orders of magnitude of more moral value than human beings. Right? Okay, so they're aliens. Why not? Let's use an alien analogy, shall we? Super sentient aliens. They feel things a level of which you have no ability to even conceive. You cannot conceive the level of sentience that they have. So you have no concept of it, right? So it's just, you're less than an ant compared to these things. Now, since he doesn't really go into what it means for the repercussions of an ant being less moral value, he doesn't really say. He just says that any sentient being is supposed to get some kind of moral consideration, and there's a level to it, but doesn't really go into those levels. They never do. They never go into what those levels are, what they mean. What does that all come down to? Closest thing I've heard is that in a moral dilemma, choose the more morally valuable individual, which in some cases would be the level of sentience. He equates sentience with intelligence, cognitive ability, and all that kind of jazz. So in theory, something that is about as smart as a box of rocks and has the capacity, the mental capacity of wet paint, would be about as valuable as such, which was to say none, right? Because he's linking sentience directly with cognitive ability, intelligence, how well. So if a person is mentally challenged or severely to the point where they're barely functioning, whatever, they're still sentient, but there's like just a granule of it or whatever, then you could treat them as you would any other sentient being that just happens to share that capacity. So basically it would be the same as running over a slug on the highway or some shit close to that. That's perfectly fine. You run over some retarded infant who just happens to be crossing the road, who is blissfully unaware of the environment, that is lacking in sentience in orders of magnitude compared to you. Yeah, run them over with your car, perfectly fine. No fuss, no muss. That's about as valuable as they are. Hitting them with your car, killing them, yeah, shit happens. So what if there's like, I don't know, the whole road is littered with them? That's cool. Just run them all over, fuck it. So yeah, all them babies that have the same sentient level of, say, an ant. Just say, let's go with an ant, fine, why the fuck not? Yeah, perfectly fine. Run them over. It's unfortunate, but that must happen, but I have to go to work, so I'm gonna run all these babies over, and I'm not gonna really feel anything about it. It's okay. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Now, back to the aliens. All right. So say these super, absolutely, infinitely sentient individuals, infinite orders of magnitude more sentient than you, where, compared to them, you have about as much sentience as, I don't know, a plant. Or, at the very least, since we're going to go there, since we don't want to go with the plants, okay, fine. A hydra. Or the little water bears. Right? You're a water bear compared to them. Why not? Why not? Water bears have brains. They have the tiny little central nervous systems. They may or may not, I mean, whether or not they're sentient, I mean, how the fuck would we know? But essentially, orders of magnitude different, right? Okay. Typically, a vegan's not going to lose their shit if they eat food or eat, because these things are everywhere, right? The water bears are everywhere. They're almost in they're in the air, they're in the fucking water, they're in your food. It's almost an impossibility. There's no sleep lost on this, right? Because why? The orders of magnitude, morality, blah, blah, blah. If you want to use that one. Okay, fine. All right. Humans have about as much moral value to these infinitely sentient beings as the Tartarus, the water bear does to humans. And these aliens are same size, same shape as human beings. So, one head, two eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They even have the goodies. They look like human beings in every way, shape, fashion, or form. Let's just go with that. These guys look exactly like you and me. Precisely like you and me. Except for the fact that, of course, they're infinitely more sentient than you and I. And one of the things that gives them the most bliss is killing and eating humans. Tell me something. Would you, you're a vegan, you believe that individuals that are infinitely more sentient than you are of infinitely more moral value than you? Okay. Would you just roll over and die? Would you literally walk up to them and have them kill you? Because they are more moral than you are. They're of more moral value than you are. Would you just let them kill you? Probably not. Oh, I know what you're going to sit there and say. Oh, well, why would they do such a thing? It doesn't matter. In the end, in your hypothetical, it doesn't matter what their motivations are outside of the fact that they're infinitely more morally valuable than you, and they like eating you. And let me rephrase this. They don't care. You're just in the way. You're there. You're a food source. They could give 2 shits about you. They look at you and they say, "Oh well, look at this." They look at you as if you would look at the lowest possible sentient being. They give you as much moral consideration as that, which is virtually none, if anything. They want your house. They'll eat you. They'll kill you and eat you, and they don't really care. They really honestly don't care, because they're infinitely more blissful than you are. Therefore, you don't matter in this world. Or they want to terraform it, and you're in the way. They don't care. That's about how they view you. Will you fight? Of course you will. Would that be a justification for you? Would you sit there and go, yes, you're far more morally valuable than I am, therefore I am such a lowly thing, please kill me? Probably not. Let's be honest with each other, shall we? You're not going to roll over any more than any other situation in which you pull out the aliens for somebody else. So please, for the love of everything, put the fucking aliens away. It's dumb. Because the same argument can be used against you, and I doubt you're going to give any different of an answer than anyone else does. But yeah, as far as your moral hierarchy is concerned, what are the consequences? What's the consequences of being on the lowest level, the lowest rung? You're one step above everything that has no moral value. You're one little step above. You have a whatever you have being. You're sentient now. Is it just the on-off thing? And if that's the whole thing, if it's an on-off switch, it's moral consideration because you are sentient and no moral consideration if you're not. Claiming that there's levels is bullshit, because in the end, if you sit there and say, oh well, there's levels, okay, what's the downside to that? What's the downside of being on the lowest level? Is there a downside? Does that mean that what's it mean? I haven't heard a vegan answer that question, other than introducing the moral dilemmas, which doesn't always. It's only a very specific kind of moral dilemma. But whatever.
Have to bite the bullet on saying that it's fine to Holocaust retarded people. At least a certain retarded people.
Certain type.
It just keeps going on and on and on. Same shit over and over and over again. Alright. I'm done with this one. Yeah. I don't even know how to get into this any further. I've wasted a lot of time doing this. It's an hour long. If you aren't willing to listen to it, by all means, go ahead. If you've made it this far, then you already know. But in the end, every argument that vegans use pretty much it seems to me that every single argument that vegans use, most of them can be used right back at them, and they give the same they give the same responses. They really do. This is the nature of what it is to be human. People are kind of predictable. And that's one of the things that vegans take advantage of. That's why using emotional manipulation, and of course they justify that with, oh, well, we're trying to save the animals. But the reality is, you're not really trying to save the animals. You're trying to save some animals at the very least. At the very least, a handful of animals. And just say so. Just say, hey, yeah. Because if it boiled down to, and this is one of the things that that drives me nuts, with ethical vegans in particular, you don't eat animals of any kind, regardless of the level. You don't condone the quote-unquote murder and genocide and Holocaust of any animal, regardless of whatever level of sentience they have. Be it an ant or an elephant. How you feel about it may be different, but that's not the same, is it? That doesn't... You essentially... It's just saying, hey, don't kill animals, and it doesn't matter. Even if you sit there and go, okay, alright, what about non-sentient animals? Well, that includes those, doesn't it? Otherwise, you would be eating them. You would literally have... That would be on your plate, but you don't. Because to be consistent within veganism, it's just all animals, period. Has nothing to do with whether or not they're sentient. Has everything to do with whether or not they're animals. Be real with me, be real with everyone else, and just say so. Because I've asked vegans, ethical vegans, and in the end, when it boiled down to them claiming that sentience was the absolute most important thing ever, this is the point where they say, hey, it's okay to eat, to kill and consume human beings. To slit the throats of humans. Somehow or another, you can't sit there and claim that humans are a moral value and that humans are not of moral value. Anyway, I may re-record this just to give a little bit of a streamlined commentary. Who knows? I might just fucking just post this. Y'all used to me being a little long-winded. Anyway, oh, by the way, anybody in Isaac's Ask Yourself Discord, just want to let you know, man, from the bottom of my heart, you know, from me to you, go fuck yourselves. Okay? Really though. Just seriously ram it straight up wherever, whenever. Anyway, I'm the Bearded Devil. This has been one of those videos. If you like it, let me know. If you have something to say where you think I probably just rambled. But it's been a while since I rambled and put it on the air. So here we are. I will be back with more videos and probably a live stream pretty soon. And this has been my test of OBS system, and hopefully it worked and the audio came out nice. And I recorded it properly. We'll find out. Anyway, later guys.